All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Curt and welcome to another edition of Fire Law Roundup for September 19th of 2022. We're actually doing it on the 19th, so that's a good thing, Brad.
First, yeah.
Brad, go ahead. Take us away on we get a couple of interesting cases.
We do. So today there are 5 total cases, issues on the blog. We're going to start with 3 straightforward ones so we can really delve into 2 others, which are super interesting. I can't wait to see how they play out. The first, let's go to Virginia, where a volunteer firefighter has been charged with arson. We all know that arsonists, alleged arsonists, joined the fire service. Here he burnt his car after only 3 months. He was charged with felony arson for setting his 2021 Honda Civic on fire. I'm guessing he couldn't pay for it. I mean, it's a 2021. I had to look at that. I'm like, is that real? Not a 2000, but yeah, he set a brand new car on fire. One can only guess that he couldn't afford it. I don't know. We don't know the facts. All we know is he joined the fire service about 3 months ago.
My data on volunteer arson is about, I think it's 68% are structure fires, about 10%, 12% of vehicles, and the remaining primarily are wildland. So, you know, that's how those numbers break down, and very, very different from career arson. Career firefighters and arson are almost always for profit.
Oh, wow.
Whereas a lot of the volunteers are to go put it out or to make a little bit extra money, those who are paid on call and that kind of thing. So I have no idea why someone would burn a 2021 other than it was a lemon, but you would think it's got to still be under warranty. Yeah, it's got to be under. Yeah. So
I think that's being pretty generous on your part of trying to come up with an excuse for it.
Yeah. And well, you don't know. On the other hand, maybe he didn't. Who knows? Maybe who knows?
Maybe it was accidental.
Yeah.
Okay. So in any event, that's all we know. But we're just throwing it out there. Kentucky, same deal. I won't get on my soapbox. In Kentucky, fire chief has been indicted for stealing from his fire department from between 19 and 21, right? He drafted checks. I'm going to do it's all we know is it's more than $10,000. So that's not an insignificant amount. Could have been a lot more, could have been a little more. We don't know yet. But this is what I'm going to say. He was allegedly able to take the money by writing checks, either payable to himself or his personal phone bill. And I don't know how many times we can say this, but there will be, unfortunately, too many more opportunities. Audit the damn checks, right? Just look at the checks when they come back. If they're written to somebody personally or to an account that you don't have, like somebody's personal Verizon bill, this is on you for not auditing. I'm not going to do this morning because I'll be too frustrated.
No, I know. And let me just add one point to the last 2 cases. Okay, the arson and the theft. I could literally do nothing but report on arson and theft. And I have to look at other things, obviously. And I think it gets kind of repetitious, but the point being, we could literally just do a blog on arson and theft and not run out of things to talk about. So, we get repetitious. So, but there's an awful lot of them.
The difference between the two, other than, just, I guess, allegedly bad people, but the difference is, theft is as much the department's fault at this point as it is the person who does it. And I know the department says, oh, they stole from us. Yeah, but after a while, it's on you for not looking. And look, we all trust people, right? But it's almost always the people who we trust who stole from us. And I will say this again, look, bad people or bad times, which we're in, bad times make good people do bad things. I get it, but it's still on you, the department, to be checking your books and conducting internal audits. One little theft is one thing.
It's too much work to do it that way. It's inconvenient.
Yeah, and think of this. This is greater than 10,000. So I don't know what the amount he wrote to himself is, but the fact that he's been writing it to his phone carrier, right? And those bills are probably $65, $75 a time. that means this has been going on a long time. You should have caught it. In this, they looked at just a year and a half time period. You should have caught it. If you didn't catch it because you didn't look, this is on you as much as anyone else. And you could say, well, okay, it's still him who stole from us. Well, you want to do someone a favor? Help them not to steal from you by making it too hard. All right. That's
enough said.
Anyway,
Enough said.
enough said. Okay, Sacramento, we don't know anything about this. This is really interesting as we head out to the West Coast, but the former city of Sacramento fire chief sues, don't worry about the amount, $10 million. That's a pretty significant amount, but he's suing for wrongful termination. He alleges, a little we know is that it's based on the retaliation, that he was fired for retaliation. And the little more we know is he says that he was, he claims that the mayor not only wrongfully terminated him in May of 22, but that he intentionally exposed him to COVID in retaliation for having challenged discipline earlier. So I don't know. Wow, it's like the old HIV days where somebody would or even presently, right, where you sleep with someone or whatever, where you intentionally expose them to a disease. I don't know if intentionally exposing someone to COVID is assault like it would have been in the early days with HIV, but that's what it kind of reminds me of.
Yeah, interesting. This chief had an issue a couple of years ago. Apparently, there was some sort of a party and a costume party, and he showed up as a pimp, and it offended some people, and the NAACP got involved. Local NAACP got involved, and they came out against him. And it looks like the mayor, whether that was going around in the background, but the bottom line is the mayor saw an opportunity to get rid of him. And for political reasons or for whatever, could have been, competency or, different management style, whatever. But the mayor pulled the trigger and got rid of him. So now, he's going after him for money. And it just so happened the mayor at the time that he let him go, apparently had tested positive for COVID. So
who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Coincidence or intent, but I just got to say, though, I mean, I get personal vendettas, and I'm not saying this is true or not, right? We don't know, but I get personal vendettas, but it's just not worth it. If you have it against somebody, just smile every time you see them, shake their hand, wish them well, and be on their way. But wow.
I just checked this one before we came on, and I can confirm the lawsuit was filed. So it's not just the civil claim, and the lawsuit actually was filed. It was filed on the 13th. Lexus still doesn't have a copy of the complaint. So when I get that complaint, I'll post it online, but it's not currently available.
Okay. And look, again, to our viewers, the reason you've been doing this blog and now the video series, we've been doing it for however many months, almost a year, I'm guessing.
Almost a year. Yeah.
Almost a year. But the reason is so this stuff doesn't happen to you. And I don't think viewers appreciate how much work goes in on your part to really scour and pull these things out. But this is so this doesn't happen to you. And if you learn nothing else, don't retaliate, don't steal, don't burn stuff, right? I mean, it's not so hard, and don't discriminate. Don't retaliate. Don't discriminate.
Well, we'll see discriminate in a couple of minutes now, won't we?
Yeah, so. We will. So, okay. And just in case I disappear, we are under one heck of a storm as I look out my window, and we're Noah and a couple of elephants just went past me, but the thunderstorm is going on, so I see lights flickering. So if I all of a sudden go goodbye, it's not intentional.
Right.
Okay. So let's go to Rhode Island. So we have two bigger things. Let's start in Rhode Island. A state, obviously, if people don't know that you are sitting in as we speak. I don't know if you know the players. All we know is there's a
small
lawsuit.
State. It's a small state.
Small state, right? You can throw a baseball from one end to the other, I hear. But this is something that I have been harping on forever, that you've been harping on forever. Let's talk about the allegation. So we have paid on-call firefighters who allege that they've also been volunteering the exact same services for the same department. So as we know, the Fair Labor Standards Act is very clear. You may not, 3 simple tests, volunteer and be paid in the same agency for the same duties or same capacity. And the problem that happens, I try to explain to people, once you cross that line for one purpose, every other line is blurred and comes into play. So let me explain to the viewer. So look, if I am paid to respond to fire calls, paid on call, and let's assume that is a paid, deemed being paid, not volunteer, even though it may be de minimis, right? I think that's the question I'm going to turn to you for, because I'm not in a paid on call state. But let's hold that one as the main issue. Once you are deemed to have been paid, if that happens here, for your service, if you also volunteer for that same service, that same capacity, everything else you've done as a volunteer is now up for play. So for example, I go to calls, drills, meetings, social events, watch things online, read emails while at home, read policies, procedures. Everything you've done as a volunteer gets now thrown into the same jar as career. And the courts, based on my reading for the last 20 years, the courts do not say, well, this is a volunteer activity, this is a paid activity. Once you're paid, it's for all activities. So you have broke what you tear down that wall, Mr. Gorbachev, and that is the end of it, right? So the issue I have, which I'd really like to flip back to you now, is paid on call deemed being paid, or is it still an employee with the Fair Labor Standards Act?
Yeah, well, people use terms like volunteer and employee and per diem and part-time, and there's a lot of ambiguity because of the way people tend to use it. But per diem, what we're talking about are people who are paid by the hour or paid a salary, but they're not regular employees. They just kind of come as you need it, compared to an employee who is your regular employee. They work so many hours every week and so on. Part-time employees being people who don't work full-time, whether it's 35, 45, 35, 40, 45, 50,
not regularly scheduled,
whatever, but they're not, So per diems are people who are paid by the hour. Okay. And I think many fire departments, many volunteer departments are struggling when it comes to staffing the stations weekdays, weeknights as well, 2 o'clock in the morning. It's nice to see some people show up, but weekdays is particularly difficult. So what they'll do is they'll try to figure out a way to compensate people to cover those weekday shifts. And once you pay someone you call a volunteer, once you pay them by the hour, you no longer have a volunteer. Whether they're part-time, per diem, you can call them whatever you want. We joke, you can call a cat a dog, it's still a cat, okay? And the bottom line is, once you pay someone compensation, then they're an employee. Now, if that's not clear enough, we got this other problem here with the Department of Labor and Congress sort of consorting. They joke that they call it the full employment bill for lawyers because it's so complicated. But the FLSA says that a volunteer can receive a nominal fee. That's nominal fee. So what in God's name is the difference between compensation and a nominal fee? And the Department of Labor has said, as long as the fee is less than 20% of what it would cost you to put a full-time person in that position, then that's nominal. But there's so many different interpretations out there, because if I pay a career person $10 an hour, does that mean I can pay a volunteer $2 an hour? And the answer to that, let me make it clear. No, you can't. You cannot. Once you pay someone by the hour, you have an employee. You cannot. A nominal fee cannot be an hourly compensation. So what you need to do, if you're going to structure some sort of stipend, a monthly or annual stipend, you cannot be paying people by the hour. Once you pay them by the hour, we've got court cases and the Department of Labor say you're paying them for their productivity. You've got a problem. You've got an employee. And as you suggested, now, maybe they used to just cover Wednesdays. They would be the driver of the truck on a Wednesday. So they'd hang around the station on a Wednesday. Well, if they volunteered on Tuesday and they hung around the station, Thursday, and they went on runs Saturday, all of that time is compensable, all their training and everything else. So now, you just bought your fire department or your community this lawsuit. And according to the complaint, they had people, including a couple of past chiefs who had come and then left had told the fire district board this was a problem, and nothing had changed. So,
and this, to be clear, this isn't going to start with the complainants stop with the complainants here. They can go back 3 years. They can go back 6 years once they find cause, right? I mean, they can go back. They can go back
generally two. If it's willful, you can go back 3. But there are some ways, like you suggest, that you can go back even longer. I don't want to get into all of those, but there are some ways that you can go back even longer. And then, it's not good. Now, this suit was also brought under the Rhode Island wage payment law, which has a longer statute of limitations. And essentially, when you're supposed to pay someone and you don't pay them properly, it may be a violation of the FLSA. It's also a violation of the Rhode Island wage payment law, which has a longer statute of limitations.
Right. And let's explain how you get there. So what happens, because you got to pay minimum wage, right? And so minimum wage, fine, I paid you for that 1 hour, but no, because once you add in all the volunteer hours and divide that wage up, you're no longer paying minimum wage. So now you're in that problem too.
It's a mess. It is.
So don't do it. Please,
get some guidance. My dad, like your family, has attorneys, and my family has attorneys in it. And, my sister does real estate law, and that's what she does. She doesn't have a clue about the FLSA, and nor does she want to. She has no interest in it. Okay. Right. My dad was, mostly real estate, did a little criminal real estate and business type law. He doesn't know about the FLSA. So
don't ask me to do your divorce. We don't do everything.
Can't just, and attorneys also have a problem saying, I don't know, or I'll need to research that. They want to, do ego, everything. Whatever. Point being, you need to get with an attorney that understands the FLSA and is willing to devote the time. It's not rocket science. It's just reading it. You got to read. You got several hours of reading to do, but
when you say several hours, several hundred hours of reading to do.
Well, it depends, but it depends on the issue and the complexity. But you got to read this. You got to read the FLSA. You got to read the regulations that underlie the FLSA, and then you got to read some cases. And then
the Department of Labor. Look, when it was, I'm guessing it was like 7-8 years ago when they came out with that 20% rule, and they tried to clarify what nominal or de minimis was. I think they use the phrase nominal. And that created no clarity whatsoever.
No,
but
I know it.
You would have to stay familiar with that.
Yeah. And the funny thing, and we talk about this in our FLSA class, right? The FLSA doesn't use the term nominal fee. Right. The regulations don't use the term nominal fee.
Of course,
it's in an opinion letter. It's the Department of Labor's opinion. You have an opinion. I have an opinion. The Department of Labor has an opinion. It's not law. It's an opinion. But, the courts have pretty much bought into it. They said, no, that makes sense. And we'll use the 20% figure for a nominal fee.
Right. So, to everybody out there, don't hire your real estate lawyer to do fire stuff. Okay. Now let's go to Philadelphia.
Wow.
I was going to pull out a cheesesteak for this. If I could sit here, eat lunch with a big cheesesteak in front of me. And, but then I felt badly because this is about a heart attack. So I didn't want to do that. So this is a claim. Everything. We always say it, but I know you get the harassing emails, phone calls. How could you say this? This is an allegation.
This is what it's in the complaint.
Yeah, we're just playing Monday morning quarterback to facts we don't know, right? But this is really interesting for so many reasons on so many levels. We could spend 5 hours discussing this if true. So I thought we'd focus on a couple of portions of this. So we have here's what we have, and I'm going to take both sides of this because the other side, the department side, at least initially, was maybe defensible until they kept grinding it in. So here's what happened in short. So in short, a paid Philadelphia firefighter, right? We're not talking volunteers here, has a heart attack. And he gets a return to work letter. There's something missing here. I'm going to raise it in a moment, what seems to be missing, which I think we'll see. But so there's he comes back to work. He's cleared to duty, and then he suffers and I'm going to read the letter because it's critical for this discussion. But then he claims he's suffering retaliation, harassment, bullying. Strangely, he does not claim any rights that I saw under the FMLA, which he should have. Had he attended our lectures, he would have known to raise discrimination and retaliation suits. But anyway, here's what the letter says, right? So his letter he receives from his direct supervisor, a lieutenant. They clearly
This is his review. This is his annual review.
Oh, his annual review.
This is his annual review.
Yeah, and it's definitely scathing. But let me just preempt it. It gets left all over the firehouse, right?
Yeah.
I mean that's just Bush League kind of stuff. If true, I can't keep saying that. But here's what the review allegedly said, and I'm going to defend it for a little bit. Okay. So if it had ended there, so it says, quote, I understand that your medical condition has caused you to stare your mortality in the eye, but maybe it is time to decide being a firefighter is not the direction you want to pursue. Myself and your peers, these are phrases from it or catch snippets from it, but myself and your peers have begun to lose confidence in your ability to perform at maximum efficiency in an actual emergency. I'm looking for the minimum standards associated with being an average firefighter. It has been my goal every day to inspire members I work with to achieve these standards, but it's obvious that you have not grasped these qualities. Let's stop here. Because as everybody will anticipate, this gets spread all over: retaliation, harassment, obnoxious comments, bad working environment, bullying, all sorts of stuff. But let's start just here. If this letter, now, this is not how you do a review. You don't write sentences like this on a review, right? If you want to talk about somebody's low performance with specific examples, that's one thing.
Don't connect it to a medical condition, number one.
God, no. But let me for a moment, because I think it will be the last time we do this, let me for a moment try to make this defensible.
Okay.
I think what must be missing, if it exists, I'm assuming there was some lack of effort. I'm guessing there was some lack of effort that this person is now the plaintiff in this, the firefighter, must have maybe didn't want to exert himself or herself as much, and he didn't show maximum effort, or in this case, average effort, perhaps, and it's causing concern among other firefighters, right? You assume somebody, hey, he didn't want to exert himself because he's worried about hurting. So start with, he's either cleared or not, right? But this is not about an actual disability. This is about an apparent disability that this person's saying, you appear to have a disability. But on the other hand, let me keep taking his side for the moment, the side of only for this review, not that I like it or how it's done, but if it's true, let's assume his review, if done properly, if it's true, was you're not doing the jobs you're assigned. You should have just left it there, not tied it to anything, have that person come back, right? It may be defensible to saying you're not doing what you're assigned on scene. You're not exerting yourself by picking up a ladder or doing a proper search or, stretching the hose line fast enough. His frustration, if the reviewer is correct, the lieutenant or whatever, if his reviewer is correct that he's not putting effort in, just say that. Why are you tying it to you appear to be worried about having another heart attack? There's no reason.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good point.
Right, clearly, if he's not throwing a ladder or whatever he's doing, let it be that. That's enough. But going here and stabbing them in the heart, literally, is not the way to handle this. So from here, what happened? Well, let me ask this: is anything more we should discuss on the?
Well, yeah, I think you hit the one of the early, and I wasn't even going to go there with that, but I think you're absolutely right. And you got to assume there's got to be something. There's got to be something that prompted this. Either it's an individual dislike, that one particular lieutenant dislikes one particular firefighter and wants to get him out of the company, or there's some smoke there. There's some flames. We're seeing smoke. There's something going on there. So then, where do we go now? Apparently, this lieutenant not only brought his medical condition into it, but then allows it to be shared with others in the firehouse. And now, you know, and I understand on one level where an officer, I've had people come to me with complaints about employees, and they say, nobody's doing anything. He can't do the job. He's too fat. He's too slow. He's too this. He's too that. And yeah, I don't feel safe. And so I want to make sure that folks know that I'm actually addressing it. Right. But you can't be showing somebody's annual review. I mean, that's just, you can't. So I understand there's a lot of pressures that are being applied here. And then you start to see some other people involved. And there's a couple of chiefs that I think is from what the complaint, the way the complaint explained it, it sounds like the chiefs handled it properly, and they got in the middle of it and stopped. They stopped what they could. Yeah, they stopped what they could. But you know, this is there's a number of problem behaviors on the part of the company officers, the two company officers named in here, that if true, you know, kind of like what you talked about before, we could blame the individuals, or we could say, well, wait a minute, now what sort of training did that lieutenant have? Did he just, you know, make rank and was never really, nobody ever explained to him what belongs in a annual review and what really you shouldn't put in there?
Why is there a narrative section, if there is one, on an annual review? Narratives lead to nothing good. When we talk about in our HR lecture, and you and I will do on our national HR talk, when we talk about reviews, check boxes, objective check boxes, right? And they're somewhat subjective, but narratives never lead to anything good, period.
Well, you're bringing in medical condition. Now, you know, what other, you're going to talk about race, you're going to talk about religion, you're going to age. Right. I mean, you know, it just opens Pandora's box for problems here.
Right.
So,
and so let's stop here for a second. If you are a lieutenant or anybody who does reviews and you don't have training in the reviews, start there. Your department should offer them. Two, if there's a narrative section, look, everyone can have their own opinion. I hate narratives. Check boxes work, right? Here's the criteria. We evaluate everybody on the same criteria. Here we evaluated you. There's no personal comment, check boxes only. And it's strange too, because reviews, I think you are going to have to correct me if you know, are a mandatory subject of bargaining, not what's in the review, but I think that you have a review.
The process. The process. I would think so. If a department in a collective bargaining jurisdiction, if a department wanted to start implementing, I would think that would be bargainable. If nothing else, if the actual system that you're going to use for evaluations isn't bargainable, the impact of it would be. So you have at least impact bargain, but I would think the entire process would be.
Right. And look, the rest of this case is just kind of twofold, but there's another interesting view. So you've got two people here who, and it raises a whole other issue. You got two people who don't get along, right? Mm-hmm. And you've got one who's clearly out for the other. Yeah. And they separate their station, which is great. Except they don't, allegedly, because now on overtime shifts for like a year, supposedly he's going to be assigned to work together. He's going to be back as a superior officer. And it just doesn't seem like a good move that you need him in the same station. And to me, that's it is hostile work environment over a disability. It is bullying, harassment, hate, all of these things. Mm-hmm. The city's making a bad choice if that's true, and everybody knows it's happening. So now everybody's looking out for it, and you're not doing a great service. Look, this isn't like you're my sales manager, right? This is, as a lieutenant, you're assigning me duties on the fire ground, and trust is a major issue on the fire ground. And look, this stuff, people could say, oh, when the bell goes off, we're all friends, we work together. Not with this, you know, I don't think so. Not when I'm saying you're not going to do your job. So all of a sudden now you're also opening the city up to more retaliation claims, because what assignments do you think this guy's going to get? One of two. He's going to get fluff assignments where he's hitting the hydrant, right? Or he's going to get the go vent the roof, the hardest assignments you're going to get. He's going to constantly get. And my fear is he's going to get that until he's literally worked beyond the ability or capacities expected of the average firefighter. And look, I don't think this lieutenant's an idiot. He tried to use words in his narrative, average firefighter. He tried to be general medical condition. He tried to state his goals, but this is this guy, if the plaintiff gets injured, the city's getting sued for a lot more than just retaliation and harassment. And that's my fear. My fear is the city has now put these two together and the lieutenant is going to assign him jobs which are just too hard. Maybe, look, fine, vent the roof, but as soon as you're off, go search the building. As soon as you're done search the building, go bed the hose. As soon as you're done bedding the hose, go wash the truck. I mean, that's my fear. That's my fear. So we could talk about this all day long if you want.
No, I think we've got the key things. I would encourage folks to read the complaint, read even what I've got in the blog, but the complaint gets into more detail. I can't include everything in the blog, but look at the facts. And whenever I look at a case like this, I'm saying, okay, what was on the lieutenant's mind? Or there's another captain was on. What was on that captain's mind? What might have the facts been? How might those same facts look differently to the person who was on the receiving end of some of the comments and some of the things that happen? And then how is this all going to look when it gets in the news media, when it gets in to court, when it gets before a jury, and say, is it really worth this? And do I have the information that I need to support me in making these kinds of statements? Or, am I going off on a limb here with what I perceive? Like, he mentioned one incident that happened when he was driving the truck, and the officer reprimanded him for slowing down a block before the incident. And I can absolutely see this happen. And when one person doesn't like another person, or one person feels that another person is incompetent or whatever, they're going to perceive things in a certain way. And the officer yells at the driver about slowing down a block before the block that they've been dispatched to. And the driver says, there's a tree limb hanging down low. I don't want to hit the tree limb, Right. And so that's sort of like that classic where when you're with that person, it's just nails on the chalkboard. You're going to see things in a certain way. And then that's going to sort of blind you to maybe some other things that are also going on there. But I have a lot of confidence in the Philadelphia Fire Department. Chief Thiel,
sure. Good department.
It really is. And I'm sure he's going to be on top of this. And, some departments, I think, will let things slide. But, I think that this will get resolved appropriately. We won't see, I can't imagine we're going to see a jury trial on this.
No, this is going to be resolved. I would imagine by way of settlement or whatever.
Yeah, in fact, I'm surprised it even got to this level. So.
But let's close with this, because you're talking about training. Look, in a big department like Philadelphia, the chiefs don't know about everything that's happening. Right. And now everything's a bad reflection or a good reflection on the chiefs, but they don't know. And so until you're told, once you're told, look, get involved, and the city's got HR, they've got a large, corporate structure, obviously, but your lieutenants have got to receive this training. And, I'm so tired of sexual harassment training. When I do it, I scare the hell out of you. If you sit in my sexual harassment course, you are nervous. But harassment, discrimination, retaliation, this is what the lieutenants and everybody need to be trained in, that it's not part of your job to do it. It's part of your job to prevent it. And if you're a regular Joe or Jane firefighter, it's not your job to take it and to accept this. That's the training we need to do. Frankly, the training is go watch Curt and Brad for, 3 weeks, and you will get the idea of what's happening out there in the fire service. And you'll stop it. But we've got to train people in not these cookie cutter insurance videos that nobody's really watching, right? Because otherwise, what do you say? 60 to 70% of the cases wouldn't be about discrimination, retaliation, harassment, etc.
Yeah. We don't hire a new firefighter and assume they know how to pack hose, assume they know how to put on an SCBA. We train them in all of that. But yet sometimes with officers, we make an assumption that, well, they've been hanging around. They know how the annual review goes, or they know how to do this, or they know how to handle that. And we don't make that assumption when we hire a new firefighter, do we?
Right.
In fact, we look pretty silly if we didn't train somebody on how to put on an air pack and they get hurt at a fire. Well, when we don't properly train our officers in terms of what their responsibilities are and what types of things will get them in trouble, we're putting our officers in the same spot.
Absolutely. And your front line people, like we talk about FMLA, when you answer the phone, what you say to the people calling in sick matters. Your lieutenants, what you say matter, what you say do, what you allow to happen on your shift matters. And yet Fire Officer 1, it's funny, even I teach Fire Officer 3 for the state, and you get 4 hours. And I'm like, it's just not enough. And yet your legal issues are we know how to put out a darn fire. Well, we don't know how to stop this stuff and to, handle this stuff. The training, it may not be exciting, but I'm sorry, you go to Fire Officer 1 or flip or whatever you want to call it. This needs to be your training, because this is what's going to scar you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and that's a strategic decision from up top that they've got to realize the middle layer here needs training. And let me give you an example, real life, but I'm gonna kind of hypothesize it. Okay, we'll have a hypothetical situation, but you have a good sized department. You have a female employee who has been harassed a little bit, had some issues, and she's been off a couple of times, and she calls her captain and says, "Cap, I'm going to be back. However, my counselor wants me to take a support animal to work." Okay.
I have this.
So
issue
now we got
actually.
ADA issues. We got possibly FMLA. We got possible sexual harassment issues right now.
And wait a minute, there's a whole support dog there's a whole support dog law.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. The captain goes, "Hey, do you believe what Mary wants? She wants to bring her dog in. You guys want to give her the answer?" Right? Like that can't happen. It's 2022.
Right.
But what training did that captain have in terms of realizing the role that he was in when that phone call comes in?
The training he got was from his prior captain, who did the same shit because his prior captain did the same shit because the cavemen did the same shit.
Yeah. And really, and I use the metaphor of airlines, but can you imagine if we maintain airlines? Imagine if we made repairs to airlines based on what the person who worked before us did, based on that sort of anecdotal, this is how you do it, kid.
Yeah.
We'd have planes crashing all the time. So.
Don't say that, because I'm flying out next week. So
yeah, I know. Well, the good news is we don't operate like that, at least as far as airlines go. So all right, man. Well, thanks for another good week, and we'll see what this week has got for us, and that'll